Well, ladies and gentlemen, Gomotion just ended her career. Now, for those who don't know who Gomotion is, she's a trans FNAF YouTuber who reviews FNAF games and makes some pretty high quality videos. You might know them for videos such as Five Nights at Candy Song or speed edits of FNAF fucking characters. Gomotion's channel is sitting at a nice 360,000 subscribers, and according to her description, she's a plucky black-eyed gal, and through her adventures, she comically presents entertainment of the videographic variety of various video games and internet-based subjects, while dodging antimatter from interdimensional wormholes. Gomotion is also famous for the Nightmare JJ character. Well, to be fair, she's the creator of that. And if you don't recognize her from any of those that I just listed, she's also the famous person who made the video A History of Fake FNAF Leaks and Hoaxes. However, if you ask me, I recognize her for speedrunning her career because this doc does not look fucking great for her. So let's bite down and survive 5 nights at Gomotion. Before we get into this, the victim is 15 years old and Jody was 18. Now, they were active in the FNAF community, began consistently interacting with Jody. Eventually, Jody came into the DMs asking about a fan game and if she could be part of it. A few days of chatting resulted in a joining of a server with some of her friends in it, which resulted in their first DM call. And over the weeks, the VC would be involved to crying and venting to the victim counseling Jody. It felt a lot at once. But I really wanted to be a good friend, and I thought at the time that Jody was very cool, and that I was just being a shoulder to lean on. Even through it, it would leave me pretty emotionally drained, but the good times outweighed the bad times, right? I really looked up to her and enjoyed some of the stuff she showed me, and I thought she was a cool YouTuber. Even if I had never even heard of her before I met her, she often vented to me about her dysphoria. I really wanted to be a supportive person. So, I always tried to be open-minded. But looking back, I realize now that many of the things she was having conversations with me about were not things she should have not said to a 15-year-old. Including having conversations with me about her transitioning that were not appropriate. Jody admitted some incredibly heavy stuff to them in a very short time. And at this point, the victim would reconsider being her friend. However, she seemed desperate for companionship. The reason why Jody was jealous was because the victim was in a relationship, and at that time, this resulted in Jody lashing out and being rude to the boyfriend for no good reason. So, she became incredibly obsessed with them. The friendship quickly became codependent, but I felt obligated to help because that's what friends were supposed to do. Not even realizing how truly out of my depth this is. Venting became everyday occurrence, oftentimes multiple times a day, and I was expected to help her. She would often ask me to make promises that things would/wouldn't come true, and only became calmed down once she heard the answer she wanted. This will become a lot more prevalent later. This conversation would go deeper with Jody, going full cyberstalk mode, and later her boyfriend's social media pages. And when I mean social media pages, she would look into all of these. For me, trying to understand this person, I get it. The trans shit is kind of fucking hard, right? Gender dysphoria and stuff. I'm not trans, so I really can't tell you. And trans people do have it hard, right? You're talking to people and displaying yourself in a false sense, a fake version of you. However, within every single bit of these texts, I don't think gender dysphoria or any other tiny bit of anything, mental illness and etc., could really help her in any sense or way. This is borderline horrible. They would continue to look at their boyfriend's Twitter and more socials and asking more about their boyfriend. And of course, furthermore, Jody will reference the victim as sister, and at this time, they've reached a 4-day talking since they began speaking from their first post, and obviously this will go very deeper. In the next few screenshots of this document, it would show a lot of sexual nature. In the late 2020s to 2021, in the server, Jody wanted a private channel and VC for herself and people she specifically chose to be in the secret chat. It was initially supposed to be for when she got overwhelmed in VC or something, but this situation spiraled out of control that the channel got archived forever. I never thought you could recreate class warfare in a Discord server, but I accidentally created a space for that. Whoops. To anyone reading this part of that experience, I am so sorry. And I only had good intentions, creating this space for her. But when I was 16, and this situation truly spiraled beyond something that I could handle myself. I'm not going to dig through that absolute shit. In 2021, the victim was experiencing homelessness and some serious relationship problems with them boyfriend, and one day Jody approached him with something that sounded exciting. The victim said she had a friend who was 17, and Jody had a crush on them. The thing seemed hopeful, very hopeful. For 3 days, Jody dumped this friend, and 3 days after admitting a crush to them, it was horrible. My friend's self-esteem was damaged for a very long time after this event, and Jody felt they needed to get over it. Jody, at the time, was 19, and the victim was 17. The victim's friend was 17. And obviously they have a statement. Hi, I'm the individual who was crushed on. To say this was a rough time in my life would be an understatement. Living in a small traditional house while in the process of moving counties, having little access to my friends when Jody approached me about having feelings for me. I felt a lot of joy for the first time in months. Unfortunately, that did not last. For months, I held on to hope and feelings that I would not again be reciprocated. It made me struggle to figure out how to even approach Jody and left me confused about my feelings. I got so stressed out about my life that I was throwing up almost every day. I hope that this helps to show Jody how her actions affect people. Within the dog, there are some statements from other people. In this section of the video, I'm going to leave a lot of stuff out. The reason? Yeah. Finally, Jody will go further into the sexual conversation. The dad will state that Jody spoke to the person on the screenshot, talking about how Jody did not admit this to them until March 2022. She kept this hidden from me for years, and going behind their back and telling my friends to keep this horrible secret from me. And when she did admit this to me, it wasn't the entire truth. She admitted that she had done this when I was 15 with non-sexual art I made for her. As a platonic friend, she imagined herself as me while pleasuring herself. She hid this from me through our entire relationship. It is one of the most deeply horrifying things I have ever learned. Jody's company was often suffocating. Wherever I was, she had to be. She wanted me to be in every single voice chat. I was in every server so that she could be with me all the time. I would get home from work and immediately she would ping me, begging me to join the VC. I work at a job where I'm standing for 7 hours a day and I suffer from scoliosis. It was frustrating and exhausting feeling, being expected to spend every single free moment of my day and night with her. She always expected me to call her every single night while we slept. I could never say no because she would break down and beg and plead with me. So many times we would just start our call just for her to start crying. I usually tried to console her, but eventually I reached my limit. I was never able to hang out with any of my friends. She would often be extremely aggressive towards other people we hung out with, would mute/deafen every single time I stepped away, and not even making an effort to converse with others in the call. My friend would often come to me with complaints about her aggression and rudeness. 99% of the time, her aggression was entirely unwarranted and out of pocket. This caused a lot of people to not want to hang out with us at all. I would repeatedly voice my feelings about this issue and attempt to set hard boundaries. She would act like she was going to change, but things always stayed the same. Her jealousy and anger would cause her to go as far as to lash out in toxic and rude ways towards others I was friends with and cared about. This kind of stuff made me feel like I was wrong for getting mad at her for her actions because she would act sorry, but then she would inevitably do the same shit again. It makes me sad watching me try to ask her over and over and over again to let me hang out with others, and clearly nothing ever changes because I need to keep bringing the tissues. Through page 95 through 97, the victim expressed the results of the election that happened and had taken a major toll on their mental health, and was waking up in early hours of the morning in cold sweat panic, and was vomiting constantly from stress and was in and out of the emergency room. Yet Julie still expect them to be an emotional relief. They would desperately voice to her multiple times that I am in no position to be her therapist, and that I can't handle this kind of venting right now for the sake of my own mental health. I constantly and desperately tried to remind her that I cannot be her therapist. The everyday venting would not stop. I found myself dreading waking up to panic messages from her. I dreaded going to work breaks and checking my phone to see her miserable. I woke up on December the 14th, 2024, not feeling well, got ready, and headed to work. Pretty much as soon as I stepped foot on the work floor, I had a massive panic attack. I was hit with the realization that I was not happy in my relationship with Jody, and that I needed to leave her. I was genuinely terrified at this point that she would kill herself if I left her. But I knew I couldn't provide what she wanted for me as a girlfriend anymore. I could not handle being her therapist every single day, multiple times a day. I knew that I deserve better, and that I don't deserve to be shackled to one person for the rest of my life, especially someone online. I ended up going home early from work that day to do a lot of serious thinking and crying. When I first had my realization in the morning, I tried to break it to her as gently as possible, but it didn't feel like she was hearing me, and I was trying to placate me so I wouldn't leave. I voiced my concerns that she would do something serious if I left, and she did not acknowledge it. After trying to express to her that I was afraid to pursue a relationship further because I didn't feel I could emotionally provide her, she continually pushed my boundaries, calling me pet names and downplaying what I was saying to her. And yeah, that's about it for the rest of the document. For what is left of it is just like transphobic tweets and fucked up like the N word and saying stuff like that. Honestly, with me reading all this and doing more research and stuff like that, reading, copying, and editing, I kind of realized that there should have been a better way to approach this video. Except I was too balls deep into this, and by the time I was thinking about this, I already switched editing softwares and was in the very unfortunate way of reinstalling some newer stuff into my house. So a lot of things were happening. I could have taken this in a lot more better position, and yet too much stuff was happening. But I'll still take the flag for that. I could have done this a lot better. Which finally leads us to her response. If I'm gonna keep this shit a $1.50 with you, this response is not well. I don't generally fucking care what her response is. She probably needs Saul Goodman for this. And for the 36 fucking pages of it, I better be seeing a goddamn memo. So, finally we get to the apology. Gomotion finally released a 39 pager, and in it she states that I did not have any intention, nor did I ever groom T. I did not ever coerce T into any nature that they were comfortable with, and, blah, 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 etc., etc. T and I first began speaking in DMs. Pretty much this whole section of it will go over her mental health, pretty much say she was trans, stuff like that. Whatever. In hindsight, this was a recipe for disaster, and I had severe issues with oversharing, especially with someone that I just had met. Pretty much, this apology is just going to cover the highlights. So basically, pages 2 through 4, T recognizes and Joey recognizes that we're both feeding into each other's fears of abandonment. And in the relationship, T also referred to them as their sister as well. So they were kind of showing each other off as sisters. And most importantly, there is a bigger section of 2 through 4 that pretty much is just a little bit of a nice drizzle on it. I did leave a portion out of Jody from, well, the tickler's view, experiencing what would look like a 14-year-old about to kill themselves on a Discord call. And they pretty much go over that. They will say, I like to clarify that this did not happen. The friend in question wanted to call on Skype after vaguely auditing that something was wrong. As an anxious and clueless 14-year-old, I accepted. He turned on his camera at his own volition, and I saw the attempt live, causing me to end the call abruptly and sending me into a deep, severe panic over what I just witnessed, racing around my house in shock. Thankfully, the message just confirmed he was okay. And through through the late 2020 to 2021, she doesn't really address a lot of stuff that's in there, except to talk about the Jody hole, which was what the channel was, and they fully regretted creating this channel, and they essentially apologized to the friend group at the time that this affected. Pretty much, that's what it was. And basically, through the crush, this part of the good old apology, it explains that Jody was having a fear of being asexual, aromantic, and in a foolish attempt to circumvent this, they begin casually dating some of the people around her to see if anything would develop. And at this time, I found myself liking the idea of dating a particular friend who I was close with. They responded by telling me that while they had feelings for another friend, they liked me too. And I wanted to give things a real chance, so I began to date. Pretty much what Jody goes over in this part is that, hey, I am not really liking this relationship, but the tickler was like, oh, hey, it's only been a few days. Just give it a little bit, like, give it some more effort. Give it a shot, right? And about a week into the relationship began, they decided that staying in the relationship wasn't, that they weren't, committing it, and it didn't feel right. And so Jody broke off. And in hindsight, they since learned how deeply hurt this friend was and their circumstances at that time that led to their vulnerability. For that, they were genuinely so sorry. And we were just saying that was on my part. That was my bad G. So we're going to skip a big portion of the late 2021 through 2022, merely because I'm not very comfortable reading that, 50 Shades of Grey type shit. And if I was going to read some romantic fucking words and shit, I would much rather go on the hub and jerk off to fucking gay yaoi porn. But I will provide a screenshot that ultimately sums up a lot of this. Finally, we go over the all-consuming obsession from Jody. In this, she clarifies a few points brought up in the few documents, which is the behavior involving muting and deafening every time T stepped away was certainly an on and off issue that aroused in the past, but something that has ceased in the last couple of years leading up to our breakup. While we did call most nights, and some nights I was upset we could not. This was something I would break down over every time. And admittedly, at least I would be upset if I had some extreme underlying worries or anxiety that night. However, this is not an excuse. At least they acknowledge that. At some point, I did want to join T in other servers and voice chats they were in again. I would like to state that, especially closer to the end of our relationship, this was an issue that only declined in frequency over time. I will not deny that this behavior was inappropriate. T was often willing and happy to spend a large portion of their free time together in a voice chat. This is specific example was taken yet again. The end of my 4th visit. And obviously, they would cover more, talking about how none of these points negate or justify how rude I was to the others around me during this time. And they obviously go further deeper into their drug abuse by talking about how they found cannabis a few years ago, and it was there to help treat their mental illness. Obviously, there is more stuff to this that I won't cover, but obviously, you could pause the video and read some of this stuff. Me personally, I think that this apology at the end of the day, it's decent, I would say. Maybe at least she acknowledges some of her points. Is this like the Shane Dawson of, oh, you need to fucking like, or the Logan Paul, like this was a very deep understanding and blah 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 of whatever, seeing a body in the fucking force or something like that. No, I wouldn't say that at all. The apologies, meh. I'm not really expecting a lot from this, especially how damning the evidence was. But it seems that she understands a lot of the stuff that she has done and has appropriated the reaction of it, such as condoning the genuine transphobic and then, gay right and remarks and statements of belief. She condones that. So it's fair enough on her, part. I'm not going to really hold her extremely high on the genuine transphobic remarks and stuff like that because, at the end of the day, everybody fucking does that at some point. Now, you could make a very fair case about, like, oh, she was a grown adult. I generally don't fucking know. Her age is very vague. But we can assume that she's like 25 or something. And then the big thing that I would like to state is that when I was seeing this apology and going in the comment sections of her Twitter account, a lot of people called her a pedo. And in some cases, you could make a good remark for that. I wouldn't say so. One, I don't really know where she lives, so I'm guessing she lives somewhere in the United States, probably. And that's what I have to go over. But again, there's a very big thing. Some people have said that she lives in the UK. The UK does not have Romeo and Juliet laws. So if you're above like the age of 18 or something like that, you could have like a 4-year gap. This happened with Call Me Carson one time. Kind of destroyed his career somewhat, but there's that. Now, calling her a pedophile, is that really remarkable? Shouldn't you be calling her a pedophile? Maybe. I would understand if you did, right? Because at the time, she was dating somebody who was, depending on which fucking side, like 15 or 17. But I do think Jodie has a lot to answer for this. This apology is not fucking great because the grooming stuff, obviously she does like, talk about that, saying that she did not groom her. It did feel like that when you were reading the tickler's part, the victim's part. Because a lot of this stuff is just what the fuck. Like a lot of this stuff, the biggest portion I left out was the like loving relationship they had between these two. One, I don't like covering fucking relationships. And two, I felt a little bit very, very disgusted about that. A little bit disgusted, might I add, because there was, touching cock and balls, and I much rather watch porn than read porn. So that's my part. And obviously, they finally have a statement to conclude. I am currently writing this section in the middle of the document, but I want to put this at the end. Reading through many of my old messages with T, I suddenly hit with a wonderful, good time memory and how deeply meaningful our relationship was to me. Basically, she wrote like some fucking poem that was like, oh, hey, I am truly, truly sorry about the people I pushed away and the relationships they tarnished in the process. It's a pretty good fucking apology or a little statement. I think it's pretty good. It reminds me of fucking Shakespeare. Wrote in the actual same way, I'm pretty sure. But at the end, the times of fuck this timeline I'm living in, it feels like a pretty good statement to conclude. I feel like that's the only good part about it. Is, of course, this really doesn't help her a lot because you can sit there and say like, "Hey, I take full responsibility about this stuff." Is her fucking career, broken by this? I would say probably so. Again, there were more people watching this document of the tickler than actually her response, than Jodie's actual fucking response. Now, how many of those were actual fans? Look in the comment section. I would probably say a lot, a good portion of that. But at the end of the day, is Jodie's relationship tarnished? I would say she's not going to get the hundreds of thousands of views that she always hoped to have. And obviously, she lost like 2 or 3 thousand subscribers in the process, which is kind of nothing. And so, yeah, is Gomotion's career fucked? Yeah, we'll just have to look if they do post a video or if they post a video at all. I highly doubt they will post a video, and they're probably going to be living off welfare or something like that. I don't really know, but I don't fucking generally know UK laws either, so I don't know if she's going to be legally held to accountability. Probably not. And yeah, that's it. See ya.